What if the very thing you're afraid will destroy your home is actually the only thing keeping it standing? We need to talk about a feeling that runs deep in American politics. It's the fear that immigrants, specifically those arriving today, are bringing bad cultures or foreign ideas that act like a solvent, slowly dissolving the institutions, values, and stability that make America, America. It's an intuitive trap. It feels logical, right? If you introduce new people with different backgrounds into a system, the system must change. But here is the paradox. When we actually stress test this theory against the cold, hard data of 2024 and 2025, the picture flips upside down. In the next few minutes, we're going to answer 3 uncomfortable questions. Do they actually hate our values? Are they refusing to integrate like the good old days? And does their presence break our institutions? Or is it the only thing holding them up? Just a quick reminder, if you appreciate this in-depth content, please take a moment to like and subscribe. It helps us bring you more. Now, on with the story. Let's start with the values argument. The myth assumes that people arriving here are hostile to democratic ideals, that they are importing authoritarianism. But this ignores a critical variable: selection bias. Most of us were born here by accident of geography. We take the rule of law for granted. Immigrants chose this. In fact, a 2023 survey asked immigrants why they came. The result? 2/3 explicitly stated they moved here specifically to secure more rights and freedoms. They aren't trying to destroy the system. They are fleeing authoritarianism to join it. And it goes deeper than feelings. It's about effort. To become a naturalized citizen, you have to pass a civics test that requires detailed knowledge of the Constitution and the rule of law. Here is the reality check. Studies consistently show that only about 1 in 3 native-born Americans can pass that test. Meanwhile, naturalized citizens pass it at a rate of over 90%. They aren't eroding our civic knowledge. They are statistically the most informed citizens in the room. Be honest. If you had to take that civics test right now without studying, do you think you would pass? Let us know. Type yes or no in the comments. But then comes the nostalgia trap. You've heard this one. My great-grandparents came from Europe and did it the right way. They assimilated. These new groups refused to integrate. This is where our feelings collide with the cold data. Sociologist Alejandro Portes has spent decades tracking this. In his 2024 update to Immigrant America, he found something that destroys the clash of civilizations narrative. It turns out, modern immigrants shift to English and American social norms faster than the European waves of the past. Think about it. German and Italian immigrants in the early 1900s often lived in linguistic bubbles for 3 or 4 generations. Today, the coercive power of American media and schools is so strong that we see a Babel in reverse. By the 3rd generation, the ancestral language is almost entirely gone. They aren't building parallel societies. They are sprinting into the mainstream. And we see the receipt for this in the economic data. The Pew Research Center found that 2nd-generation Americans, the children of immigrants, aren't staying on the margins. They statistically leapfrog their parents, achieving significantly higher incomes and education levels. In fact, they don't just catch up to the native-born population, they surpass them in college graduation rates and are actually less likely to live in poverty than the average American. Now, the skeptic usually pivots here. They say, okay, maybe they like the culture, but physically, they are breaking the system. They bring chaos and crime. This is the most dangerous part of the myth because it paints diversity as a safety threat. But let's look at the mechanism of institutional reinforcement. If immigrants were undermining institutions, we would see crime spikes in high immigration areas. We see the opposite. Stanford economists recently analyzed data going back 140 years. They found that today, immigrants are 60% less likely to be incarcerated than US-born Americans. And this gap is widening. Why? The data suggests it's not about fear of deportation. It's about economic stability. Since 1960, economic shocks have hit low-skilled native-born men hard, driving up their unemployment and crime rates. Meanwhile, immigrants who move here specifically to fill stable manual labor jobs have remained consistently employed, effectively shielding them from the forces that drive crime. And look at the macro structure, the economy. The U.S. has an aging native population. That's a recipe for institutional collapse, shrinking tax bases, and empty pension funds. Who is stopping that bleeding? The Congressional Budget Office recently analyzed the trajectory and projected that by 2033, the U.S. labor force will be larger by 5.2 million people, mostly because of immigration. And that labor doesn't just fill seats, it fuels growth. The CBO estimates this specific surge in workforce will boost our GDP by $7 trillion over the next decade, ensuring that our institutions have the resources to survive. So, let's go back to that original fear. Immigrants bring bad cultures that undermine our institutions. Does it hold up? The verdict: that is false. The evidence shows that immigrants are new believers who reinvigorate our values, integrate faster than previous generations, and physically reinforce the safety and economy of our communities. As attorney Chris M. Ingram puts it, immigrants bring vibrant cultures and ideas that fortify American institutions, blending traditions with innovation to uphold and elevate our shared democratic ideals. In this video series, attorney Chris M. Ingram and his team are debunking false narratives to raise awareness about the positive impact immigrants have always had on making America great. We'd love to read your thoughts in the comments below, so stay tuned for our next video where we take on another immigration myth.